Alright, my friends, welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today we're going to do kind of like a little experiment running on the 79 or the 7800 XT with the 5900X. As you can see up there in the GPU line, I have the power usage for this game, as well as the power usage for the CPU, both the GPU and the CPU power usage. Is what we're doing is we're comparing this. We're looking at this in terms of like PS5 Pro specs, because it should be somewhere in between like 6700 XT versus 7800 XT, in between that somewhere for power range or whatever. And this is a RDNA 3 card. So let me show you what other settings I've got right now. We're in graphics, so we are displaying at 4K, but we are upscaling from render resolution from FSR2 in balanced mode, and we are with the high settings and no ray tracing. Ray tracing is turned off right now. So let's go ahead and look at this. So I was trying to get it as close to a 60 FPS experience with the highest settings I could get. And this here is not as heavy as it is in the Forest, but as you can see, that power draw is right around almost close to 400 watts just to run this game with these settings. And because this is technically a next generation game, something that you'd be playing on your PS5 Pro. Obviously it's not on last gen consoles. So as you can see, but I do like this area right here, because when you run in here, this kind of gives you a little bit of, how it would run out in like the forested areas. When you get in here, this kind of gives you a little bit of a insight into that. So depending on PlayStation's spatial super resolution AI algorithm, however that thing's gonna run could determine your being able to stay over 60% or 60 frames a second, but also how much is that going to affect the overall power draw? Because we're looking at an APU. When you look at like PlayStation 5 Pro versus a dedicated GPU, a discrete GPU, and a full-on CPU. The 5900X, obviously, I mean, it's a Zen 2, and it's got, I think it's what, 3.7 is the minimum, clock on that CPU. So, but it does boost up to like 4.2 or 4.5 or something like that. But when you look at that, when you look at the performance and you look at the overall image quality of this running at 4K, that kind of tells me that, like, I think we're gonna have to not. I mean, I don't necessarily think we have to rein in our expectations too much for PlayStation 5 Pro. Like, with like careful optimization for the console experience, as long as we're at least a 300 watt. If they can run that PS5 Pro with a 300 watt power supply, I think we could get pretty close, because there's a lot of other overhead in PC that you got to take into consideration. You've got like your power budget for your memory, your power budget for, all of like your RGB, all of that other stuff. You've got your motherboard and everything else that's all being powered and stuff. I've got 1,000 watt PSU in this PC, and that is, I mean, that's obviously overkill for a 7800 XT system. You should be right around like maybe 750, 850 or whatever. This max power draw on this card here is supposed to be like 263, but it clearly goes significantly higher depending on the game you're playing. And this here is one of those heavy games. But let's go ahead and try one more thing. We're gonna go ahead and turn on the ray tracing now. We're gonna turn on the ray tracing, because and we're just gonna go straight to high. We're just gonna go straight to high. I mean, we could do like low and medium and stuff, but even with like, look at this. even with balanced mode, um, even with balanced mode in the for the FSR setting, we are barely we're single digit FPS. So that there is the FSR. This is oh gosh dang it, RDNA 3 ray tracing. So I mean, obviously, if you wanted to look at this in photo mode, clearly you could do that, and you could see like the overall, like visual quality of like ray tracing and stuff. But let's go ahead and go back into options, because that is clearly unplayable at 4K. Like you would really have to like crank up the but if we try like low ray tracing gets us, closer to about 40 frames a second, but then we still don't get the that we're I think we're barely getting like path trace shadows, or maybe globally I don't remember if it's global illumination or what it is, but as you can see, like we don't get the reflections just yet. So if we go back in here, graphics, and we take this to medium, we'll take this to medium on our ray tracing. Come on, click over. And then we will go on up here to our FSR, and we'll take that down to, we're just going to go straight to ultra performance and see what we can get out of that. So still 40%, but now we actually get ray traced reflections, which potentially, if you lock this at 30 frames a second, then you can potentially get better ray tracing performance out of that. But now we're at like ultra performance on like the upscaling, which, as you can see, like these little glass windows right in here, they kind of sparkle and stuff. But then again, I mean, this is, Remedy's very own path tracing, experience. And then we'll check out a couple more ray tracing games on the 7800 XT, and kind of show you what that looks like in terms of, how that's going to perform. So, but there is one more thing that we can try. We can go into here, and then we can go over to the gaming tab, and we can flip on our fluid motion frames. And then let me click on the overlay so that you guys can see that. Right. And then let's get back out of there. So now that we have fluid motion frames on, now we have a little bit more fluidity. So now if you're running in a straight line, obviously that looks fine. Now you're getting 80 something frames a second, so you're actually getting pretty decent experience. If you move the camera fast like this, it's not gonna bug you too much. But if you kind of go slow a little bit, you could kind of see a little warbling in the background. That might make it feel like you're getting dropped frame rate and stuff. But overall image quality, well, I am checking this out on a 1440p monitor right now, mind you, so it doesn't look blurry at all to me right now. It actually still looks pretty dang decent. It actually looks really good. So overall, but I mean, you can notice, like in like Saga's hair, not as crisp as it normally would be, like in a 4K in a 4K experience. But now that you're getting, obviously, some ray tracing effects, as well as, having, over a, with frame generation, obviously, you are getting a more stable experience, obviously. But as you can see, like when you're moving and running and stuff, like look at all of the judder stuff that you get. Like when you look at the trees way back there in the background. If you're at 60 frames a second, let me show you that. So let's go over here to graphics, and we will turn off the ray tracing real quick, just so that I can show you kind of the difference. So now that we've got like 80 frames, now when you move it, yeah, see, it's a lot more stable. A lot more stable. Like you can play this, and now you're getting what appears to be like what 180 frames a second. 4K with, and that there, obviously, if you look at it, that really does enhance the overall visual quality because now the overall image quality is cleaner because the frame rate is significantly higher. This monitor is 165 hertz refresh, and we're at 100 and we're at over 100 regular frames at 4K. So we're getting 200 plus frames with frame generation, and that just makes the image quality, like even when you're running and moving around, still looks a lot more stable than it did when you were running with a 40 frames per second. My minimum for that is about 70. That's 70 frames minimum for not having to deal with a whole lot of like screen jitter and stuff, and still looks fairly smooth. Still a playable experience. So that right there. But yeah, I'm kind of interested in what this PS5 Pro is actually going to be able to do, in terms of you got to take into consideration that these games are going to be a lot more optimized for that particular console experience. So they're going to fine tune the visuals, they're going to fine tune the graphics, they're going to fine tune the ray tracing, they're going to fine tune everything and find ways to already trick the console itself to be able to optimize better for that. So I think the end of the day, I don't think you're going to get 7800 XT power. But I do think that you are going to be able to compare that experience once it's all said and done and you have your PS5 Pro in your hands. I think that if you were sitting there and you were playing a game like this on the PS5 Pro versus looking at the same screen with it playing on a 7800 XT, in some ways I think the PlayStation quality might actually look a little bit better on close inspection because, well, that's just to say that unless we get the AI upscaling for the RDNA 3 cards as well around the same time, then obviously you'll get like for like image quality. But if you're looking at FSR, like this right here, FSR, but I think at this point we could probably take the FSR back to, let's say, performance, which will clean that up just a little bit more, and still give you over 70, over whatever frames a second. You know what I mean? So I do think that the PlayStation 5 Pro, with the specs that have been leaked, I do kind of feel like that console is going to be... It's going to be pretty impressive for console hardware, depending on the price, though. If it was $500 at launch for a PS5 Pro, absolutely, that'd be incredible. Incredible freaking value. But something tells me, this PC right here is almost $2,000. Almost $2,000. So to get almost this power out of a console, I don't know, man. I don't know how Sony's going to market that, or how they're going to... $500 or $1,000 maybe, and they could market that too. They could be like, look, man, this is the regular PlayStation is 10 teraflops. The PS5 Pro is 33 teraflops or whatever. We're tripling the power of the PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 5 essentially. That is a good marketing scheme. Obviously we'll be able to call that out, but just to show you guys though, if you run this at 4K native, if it'll switch over, yeah, if you run this at 4K native, you're like 30 frames a second if you're running this at 4K native. Oh yeah, I gotta turn off fluid motion frames, or that's gonna make this thing look very weird, very weird. And actually, having fluid motion frames on actually takes a little bit of performance. You see how we lost about a couple frames a second, But this here pretty much is more of a 4K 30 experience on this card if you want absolutely native 4K. But if we take this to the low quality preset, let's see what that will give us. Even at low settings, we're not even hitting 40 frames a second. We're still right around 30. Oh, well, there we go. Now we are. Now we're going higher. Now we're in the 50s, 40s to 50s. So my my guess is the PlayStation 5 is still going to rely heavily on upscaling, still going to rely heavily on tight optimization for your games and your experiences. Overall, I think it's going to be a good system, but depending on the price range, you're going to have to be committed to want to buy that console. To be completely honest with you, I think it's going to require some pretty high commitment on your part, because this thing's going to be expensive. I don't see it being very cheap. I don't. I have a feeling that PlayStation is going to come out and market it as a true pro console that is going to cost you money for that experience, and I just don't see it being less than $1,000 at the power rate they're talking about, with a proprietary engine for way better ray tracing performance, with Sony's PlayStation super spatial resolution. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I think that PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be an expensive piece of hardware, and I kind of worry a little bit about longevity for that. If they're gonna really proceed to a new console cycle in 2027 or 2028, I don't know how they do that. I feel like it puts them at a disadvantage to have a generational uptake on the overall experience, in terms of, unless there's like new tech and new stuff that comes out by then, they might be able to work that in there. And it is nice to see PlayStation really going for that ray tracing, because believe it or not, the more that PlayStation goes for ray tracing implementation into their console ecosystem, the more likely it is to be more adopted among more developers and put into these games. So for us older gamers, man, I do think we're at a crossroads right now where we are going to start having to shell out a little bit more for this tech. So that does still make me feel like PlayStation should 100% go out of their way to bring a console out that pretty much matches the Xbox Series S as a base console. I think that Microsoft and PlayStation both need to have $300 consoles on the shelf that they can, not necessarily force every developer to support, but at least have that there for that console experience for kids, for people that want to get into console gaming that just aren't 100% all about that. But I do think that Xbox and PlayStation should both enter into a higher level of console experience that can provide an experience for gamers that want that power, that want to be able to have that power, but also still have that console experience with the convenience of the console experience, and not have to worry about, if they want to upgrade their PC or anything like that. But I do believe that PC is going to be the best option overall if you're somebody that really, really, really wants that higher quality experience, and having the full power to do what they want to do and decide what they want to do. I absolutely think that if a PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be $1,000, you really should think about getting a PC instead, and focusing that money there, because you're gonna save a lot of money. You don't have to pay for online gaming. You don't have to. You get cheaper game prices on Steam. Steam has good sales. You can find so many games that are backward. You can go back so many generations and buy games, play them on Steam, and they look absolutely incredible, because then you finally get the full graphical experience from what those games did when they first originally launched, and they look incredible. They look absolutely incredible. I was playing Grid 2 today. Absolutely beautiful game. So, all right, my friends, that's my take on the PS5 Pro. It does seem like it could potentially be a good console. And this 7800 XT is a 256-bit bus, same as the PlayStation 5. So we're looking at, pretty much almost a like for like experience. And I do think that, they can potentially get enough power to at least give you a decent experience overall. But yeah, you are going to rely heavily on upscaling and stuff. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but at the end of the day, it is one of those things where, I mean, even this game right now at low settings looks absolutely incredible. It still looks beautiful. Like, this is gonna, it's gonna be good. Like, I'm pretty interested in this PS5 Pro, to be completely honest with you. It'll be interesting to see the kind of corners and stuff that PlayStation's gonna have to cut to make that a look. At this bumper is not even on this car, man. It's just literally sitting behind it. It's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to see how this is going to work out. So, all right, my friends, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.